I've never told anyone the full story of what happened in that house. Not because I didn't want to, but because I couldn't. Words fail when you try to explain something that doesn't belong in this world, something that seeps into your reality like black ink into clear water. You can't describe the shape of it, only the shadow it leaves behind. But I need to try now, because it's still calling me. It always starts with a whisper. It knows your name. I moved into the house in October of 2017, not long after my divorce. I was 31, angry and numb. Everything I'd built over 10 years had crumbled overnight. My marriage, my job, my sense of identity. I needed distance from the city, from familiar streets and friends who spoke in condolences and empty encouragement. I found the house through an older woman who ran an independent real estate business just outside a dying logging town in northern Maine. It was a cabin, technically, but far too large and modern to feel like one. Nestled in dense pine woods, far off the main road, it had the kind of silence that either heals you or hollows you out. I thought I was buying solitude. I had no idea what I was bringing home. The first week was uneventful. I spent my time unpacking, chopping firewood, and trying to reset my brain. The cabin had no internet. No neighbors for a few miles. A single-lane dirt road was the only way in or out. If you stood on the porch at night, the silence pressed against your ears like cotton, so thick, so total, that your own heartbeat became loud. It wasn't until the second week that I heard it. I was upstairs, brushing my teeth around 11 p.m. when I heard someone say my name. Clear as day. Daniel. It wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. Like someone had leaned close behind me and whispered into the hollow of my neck. I spun around, heart thudding, toothpaste foaming out of my mouth. No one there. I checked the hallway, bedroom, closet, nothing. I told myself it had been the wind, or my imagination. Stress does that to you, especially when you're isolated and adjusting to a new environment. I went to bed with the lights on. I wish that had been the end of it. A few nights later, I was outside stacking firewood when it happened again. The whisper. Softer this time, but still my name. Daniel. I froze. The whisper hadn't come from behind me. It had come from in front, just past the tree line. It sounded like it was only a few feet beyond the first row of pine trees. I stood there, every hair on my arms standing up, trying to convince myself it was just wind. But wind doesn't form syllables. Wind doesn't know your name. I didn't go into the woods that night. I told myself I was tired, maybe even going a little crazy. But deep down, I knew something was wrong with that place. Not the house exactly, but the air, the trees, the space it sat in. I started locking every door, every window. I kept a hatchet by my bed. I told myself it was for safety. I was lying. Things escalated fast. By the third week, I was hearing it every night. Always after dark. Always a whisper. Never shouting. Never speaking in full sentences. Just my name, repeated softly in different corners of the house. Sometimes it came from inside the walls. Sometimes from the vents. Once it came from under my bed. I started to keep notes. October 21st. Heard it in the stairwell while carrying up firewood. It said my name twice. No animals in the house. Nothing outside. October 23rd. 2:47 a.m. Heard whisper inside the bedroom closet. It stopped when I turned on the light. October 25th. I'm not sleeping. It watches from the woods now. I know it does. I even recorded audio one night, leaving my phone on my nightstand. In the morning, I played it back. Most of it was silence. until the 3:04 a.m. mark. That's when I heard it. My name, whispered 3 times. I deleted the file. I tried leaving for a few days, packed a bag, and drove to a motel in Bangor. The moment I walked into the room, I felt relief, like I'd finally escaped some unseen pressure. I slept through the night for the first time in over a week. But the peace didn't last. The second night at the motel, I woke up at 2:11 a.m. to a knock on the door. Just one. Sharp, like someone tapping their fingernail on wood. I went to the door, looked through the peephole. No one there. I climbed back into bed, heart pounding. That's when I heard it again, right in the room. Daniel. The voice was closer now. It didn't sound like it was coming from far away anymore. It didn't sound like a ghost, or an echo, or a figment of imagination. It sounded like someone standing just behind the curtain. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I stayed awake until sunrise, shaking under the covers, listening. Nothing else came. I drove back to the house the next morning. From that point on, it changed. It wasn't just a whisper anymore. The voice started following me in the day, too. I would hear it faintly while chopping wood or while doing dishes. It always said the same thing, my name. But once it said something different. Come outside. That was the night I saw the figure. It was standing at the edge of the woods, far back, just between 2 trees. Not moving, not waving, just standing. I couldn't make out a face, just a shape tall, thin like a scarecrow or someone wearing something too big for their body. I stared at it from the porch for what felt like an hour. It never moved, never made a sound. Then it was gone. I didn't see it leave. I tried telling the woman who sold me the house. I called her up and asked if the previous owners ever mentioned anything strange. She went quiet for a long time, then said, "You're not hearing in the daylight, are you?" That's when I knew. She knew something. Maybe not everything, but enough to be afraid. I asked what she meant, but she hung up. I called back. Disconnected, I started doing research. Checked public records, old newspapers, anything I could find. The property had changed hands 8 times in 30 years. Most owners stayed less than a year. A few months in some cases. One article mentioned a local man who went missing in 2002. His name was Todd Blackwell. He lived in a remote house outside of town. The last known location? My address. His body was never found. The last event of that month was the worst. It was Halloween night. Bitter cold. The woods were dead silent. I was inside reading when I heard the front door open. Not knock. Open. I live alone. I grabbed the hatchet and crept downstairs. The door stood wide open, letting in freezing air. No footprints in the snow. No tracks leading to or from the porch. I closed the door, turned around, and saw the words scrawled on the inside of it. "Let me in, Daniel." I haven't slept since. It still whispers. It always knows where I am. No matter where I go, what I try, it follows. I used to think it lived in the woods or in the house. Now I think it lives in the name itself. Mine. Because no matter how far I run, I still hear it, Daniel. I didn't return to the city. After the night, I found "Let me in, Daniel" scratched into the inside of my door. I packed everything I could into my truck, drove 5 hours south into Massachusetts, and rented a temporary sublet in a stranger's basement. I didn't even give my real name. I paid in cash, but it didn't matter. By then, I'd already brought it with me. You have to understand, it doesn't follow you like a person or a shadow. It doesn't need your footsteps. It moves in silence, in thoughts, in moments, between heartbeats and behind your eyes. You won't notice it until you're sitting alone and the air shifts. Until you hear it again. Not with your ears, but inside your skull. That whisper. My name. The basement apartment was a converted cellar, small but livable. Stone walls, low ceiling, smelled like old dust and mothballs. I paid a woman named Eleanor $400 a month and agreed not to bother her or her daughter upstairs. I was grateful for the quiet. I thought it would help. For the first few days, it did. I didn't hear anything, not in the walls, not in the woods, not from behind curtains. I slept for the first time in weeks. I drank too much, ate too little, and told myself that what happened at the cabin had just been a psychotic break. A mental fracture caused by grief, isolation, and too much silence. I told myself that, until the whisper came back, November 6th, 2017, 3:14 a.m. I woke up suddenly, no idea why. It was one of those snap wake-ups where your eyes shoot open and your body doesn't feel like your own. There was no sound, no thunder, no phone ringing, no dreams. But I knew something was wrong. And then I heard it again. Not aloud. Inside me. Daniel. It wasn't even words, exactly. It was thoughts shaped in the cadence of a whisper. My mind recoiled, recognizing it before I did. My name. I sat up, heart pounding, sweat already soaking the back of my shirt. The room was pitch black. The silence had a weight to it, thick and waiting. Then I heard a soft knock. Tap, tap, tap. Not on the door, from inside the wall. I turned on every light I could find, every lamp, every bulb. I sat in a corner with my hatchet and a baseball bat I'd bought at a pawn shop. I stayed there until dawn. Nothing happened. No voices, no movement, no knocking. But I knew I wasn't alone. Whatever this thing was, it didn't live in the cabin. It wasn't a ghost or a haunting. It was tied to me. It had found a way in. It used my name as a doorway. And I had let it in. Eleanor never asked questions. But her daughter, Sadie, started acting. Strange. She was 6, maybe 7. Quiet. Polite. She mostly stayed upstairs, but sometimes she'd sneak down to my level and peek through the railing, just watching. One night, I caught her staring at me through the banister while I was microwaving leftovers. You shouldn't talk to it, she said. I stopped the microwave. To what? She looked at the basement ceiling, then back at me. It knows your name. My blood turned to ice. Sadie, did someone talk to you? She didn't answer. Instead, she said, when you hear it, don't say anything. It doesn't like it when you say something back. She turned and walked up the stairs. I didn't sleep that night either. November 8th, the voice changed. It no longer said my name in a whisper. It spoke it, louder, clearer. It came from behind furniture, from inside cupboards, through the plumbing. And worse, it started happening during the day. I'd be brushing my teeth, and I'd hear it behind me. Daniel. I'd open the fridge, and it would speak from the empty shelves. Daniel. I'd flush the toilet and hear it under the sound of running water. Daniel. I told myself not to respond, not to answer it, but it started saying other things, too. Things I couldn't ignore. Your mother was awake when it happened. You remember the lake, the red ice, the deer with no eyes. It knew things. It shouldn't know things. The worst day came on November 12th. I had started sleeping during the daylight, barricading myself in the windowless laundry room at the back of the basement. It felt safer there, smaller, like the walls could protect me. That morning, I woke to a voice that wasn't a whisper. It was a scream. It shouted my name over and over. Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. Each one louder, more frantic, more violent, like it was clawing at something to get through. The walls trembled with each scream. I heard dishes shatter upstairs. A window broke. I pressed my palms to my ears until they bled. I screamed back for it to stop. And finally it did. But I had made a mistake. I answered it. That night, Sadie wouldn't look at me. Her mother avoided eye contact. Around 11 p.m., I found the words written in my fogged bathroom mirror. Now you're mine. I tried to leave. I packed a bag, took my truck, and drove west until I crossed into New York. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just drove. But the farther I got, the more the world changed. People stopped responding to me. Waitresses ignored me. My credit cards were declined. Once in a gas station, I watched the attendant scan me with her eyes like I wasn't even there. Then, she flinched like she saw something just behind me and refused to speak another word. I wasn't escaping. I was being cut off, like it was pulling me out of the world, one layer at a time. Eventually, I ran out of gas on a back road somewhere near Utica. I started walking. It was cold, foggy. Trees everywhere. I passed a road sign that read, "You belong to it, now no paint." No graffiti. Metal letters nailed clean. I turned around. The sign was gone. I don't remember how I got back to the basement apartment. All I remember is opening the door and finding Sadie sitting at the bottom of the stairs, staring at me. "It won't let you go," she said. I dropped my bag and sat down beside her. "Why me?" I asked. She thought about it, then whispered, "Because you listened." That night, I heard in the walls again, but it didn't say my name. It said someone else's. That was when I realized it wasn't just mine anymore. It had moved on, and whatever it was doing to me, it was beginning again, with someone new. I didn't leave the basement for 3 days after the voice started using someone else's name. Not because I was afraid, though I was. Not even because I thought staying would protect me. I stayed because I needed to know what it was doing. I needed to understand what came after the whisper stopped calling my name. Because whatever this thing is, it doesn't go quiet. It doesn't vanish. It moves on. And it had found someone else. The voice said the name on the second night after I returned. I was half asleep in the laundry room, clutching the hatchet against my chest when I heard it through the ceiling. Not like before, not a whisper in my head. It came from the air ducts, the actual space above me, almost like someone was crawling through the ventilation shafts. It said, "Eleanor." I froze. It said it again, "Eleanor, come see what I've made." I lay there completely still, my mouth dry, my throat locked. I didn't breathe, because Eleanor was the name of my landlord, the woman upstairs, the one who lived in this house with her daughter, the one who'd let me stay in their basement without asking questions. And now it had started whispering her name. I knew what came next. The whispers would grow louder. They would find their way into her thoughts, her dreams. They would start giving her small pieces of horror, tiny visions wrapped in silence. And she wouldn't know what was happening. She would think she was going insane. Just like I did. That day, I crept upstairs while Eleanor was out and checked the air vents in the hallway. The sound wasn't just in my head anymore. It was crawling through the actual bones of the house. I knelt beside the vent that led into their living room and listened. At first, nothing. Then I heard it, a faint rustling. Then, Eleanor, the voice now had weight, texture, shape. It didn't sound like a whisper anymore. It sounded like something breathing in your ear, something that wasn't shaped quite right, not quite human. I pressed my eye to the vent. For a moment, all I saw was darkness. Then I saw it, a shape, just for a second, too fast to catch all at once. But the impression lingered. Thin, tall, limbs too long. Something crouched at the far end of the duct, watching me. Then it moved. Fast. I scrambled back, slammed the vent shut, and didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Later that week, I heard Eleanor yelling upstairs. I ran up and found her in the kitchen, standing in front of the stove, staring at the wall. The phrase "answer me" had been scratched into the drywall above her sink. Deep scratches. Too deep for fingernails. Too high for a child. Eleanor said nothing. She just looked at me and said, "Do you have mice?" I shook my head. She went quiet for a long time, then whispered, "Do mice know your name?" The next day, I found Sadie sitting alone on the steps again. She looked tired. Her eyes were ringed with dark shadows. She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she asked, "Did it start with you too?" The name. I nodded. She looked down. Then she whispered, "I hear it now, too. There's something you need to understand about this thing, this presence. It doesn't just whisper names. That's just how it begins. Once it knows your name, it plants roots. It finds ways to speak that bypass sound. You'll start seeing images behind your eyelids. You'll taste things that aren't there. Your memories will twist. Familiar places will feel wrong. You'll hear voices in recordings that were silent. Static will become sentences. Silence will become laughter. And the worst part? It wants you to speak back. I tried to warn Eleanor. I told her I thought the house had something wrong with it, that the air ducts were carrying strange noises, that Sadie was having nightmares and might need to see someone. She listened politely, then asked me to leave. Not angrily, not suspiciously, just sadly. "I thought you seemed off," she said, "but I didn't want to assume. Now I think, maybe this house isn't good for you." She didn't blame me. She just didn't believe me. Or maybe she already heard it, and she was in denial. That night, I packed a bag again. I thought about leaving, but I didn't, because I knew what was coming next. I'd seen the pattern before. It starts with whispers, then the scratches on walls. Then it calls you by name in your dreams. And then it tries to make you see it. November 15th, 2:03 a.m. I woke up to laughter. Not mine. Not Sadie's. It was a man's voice. Low. Slow. Dragging like wet cloth on concrete. Coming from the laundry room wall. The light was already flickering before I even moved. My breath came out in cold puffs. The air was wrong. Heavier. Like it had weight to it. The walls felt closer. Like something was leaning in on the entire house. I turned slowly to the laundry room wall. And there, just above the electrical outlet, I saw a faint black spot. No bigger than a coin. Dripping. Thick. I touched it with the edge of a rag. It smeared like ink, but it smelled like blood. Above it, scratched into the drywall, were 3 letters. S-A-D, and that was when I realized I wasn't calling Eleanor anymore. It had moved on again. I ran upstairs. Eleanor was asleep on the couch, but Sadie's door was open. She was sitting in bed, awake, eyes wide. I didn't say anything. She did. I saw it. I froze. "What did you see?" She lifted a finger and pointed to her closet. It came out of there, but it didn't walk right. Its knees bent backwards, and its face wasn't finished. I stared into the dark behind her. The closet door was half open. Nothing visible. She whispered. "It said it wants to wear me." Eleanor made me leave the next morning. She was polite but firm. She said Sadie was too scared with a stranger in the house. Said maybe it was time I found somewhere else. I tried to explain what was happening, but she didn't want to hear it. I begged her not to stay. I told her to take Sadie and leave for a while. Rent a hotel. See friends. Get out of the house. She smiled, but her eyes were hollow. I think it's already inside, she said. That was the last time I saw them in person. A week later, I checked the local news. Eleanor was found dead in her home. No visible wounds, no signs of struggle. Just collapsed in the living room, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. They said it was a heart attack. Sadie was found in a closet upstairs. She was catatonic, still breathing, but unresponsive. The doctor's report said she had scratched something into the walls with her fingernails before being found. A single word, Daniel. That's when I knew the voice had never left me. It had only been playing with someone else. It always comes back. It always comes back. And when it does, it calls your name. After Sadie was institutionalized, I didn't go back to Eleanor's house. I couldn't. Not because I was afraid of the place. Because I was afraid of what I had done to it. I infected them. That's what it does, this thing, this voice that whispers. It doesn't haunt places. It uses people. Infects them like a parasite. Moves through us. Speaks our names until we're hollowed out and it can move on. But the worst part? It never really leaves you. Even now, after the screams and the scratches and the faces in the dark, it still says my name. Not every day, not every night, but just when I think I've escaped. Just when I think I've buried it deep enough in my memory that I can start to live again. That's when I hear it. Sometimes in the hush between words when people speak. Sometimes in the static between radio stations. Sometimes when I close my eyes. A whisper, still wet and warm. Daniel, I moved again. This time to a crumbling apartment building in a coastal town in Rhode Island. Under a different name, Mike this time. I figured something small, quiet, anonymous might help. It didn't. It never does. But I still have to try. The building was mostly empty, cheap rent, rotting ceilings, salt-bitten windows that didn't close all the way. Perfect for someone who didn't want to be noticed. I told myself if I kept quiet, kept my mind busy, maybe I could outlast whatever this was. But silence only feeds it. The first sign came 3 days after I moved in. A knock on the wall. Not the door. Not the ceiling. The wall. It came from the adjoining unit, apartment 2B. No one lived there. The landlord told me it had been unoccupied for months. But the knock was clear, steady, like someone knew I was there. Knock. Knock, knock. Knock. I ignored it. Then the whisper returned. Only this time, it didn't say my name. It said, "Help me." I started seeing the patterns again. Faint scratches on the walls that hadn't been there before. Wet footprints on the floor outside the bathroom. The faint hum of voice from the plumbing at night. And always, just when I started to drift off to sleep. That whisper. Sometimes a single word. Sometimes a full sentence. But always just wrong enough that it didn't feel like my own thought. And then I started seeing her. It began with a shadow. Across the hallway mirror. A brief flash, like someone had passed behind me, even though I was alone. Then came the reflections. I'd look in the window and see a shape standing beside me in the glass. Always almost human. Always blurry. Sometimes it looked like it was crawling up the wall behind me. But every time I turned around, nothing. One night I dreamt I was standing in front of Sadie's closet again. The doors slowly creaked open, and something stepped out. Something shaped like a child, but with no skin. Just raw, pulsing meat. Its face was a black, dripping void. And from within that void, a voice came, not Sadie's, not mine, but hers, the one I'd never seen, the one that whispers. It said, "You're still mine, Daniel. You never left." I woke up in a sweat. But something was off. The walls were wet. Not damp. Wet. Like someone had sprayed them down with a hose. And across the far wall, written in that same black, glistening sludge, were the words, "She's listening too." That's when I met my neighbor. Her name was Jenna. She lived across the hall. Early 30s. Mousy voice. Looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. We crossed paths in the hallway one night, both startled to see someone else moving around. "You hear it too, don't you?" she asked without preamble. I said nothing. She didn't wait. "It says my name. In the walls. When I'm dreaming. When I'm awake. It talks like it knows me." I should have walked away. I should have warned her. But instead, I asked, "How long has it been talking to you?" She looked at me with eyes wide and ringed with purple. "Since you moved in." We talked for hours. Turns out, Jenna had been living in the building for nearly 3 years. She was fine until 2 weeks ago. She had never seen shadows, never heard voices, never felt like something was breathing just behind her. But then I arrived, and the voice came with me. It called her name. It asked her to let it in. It asked her to answer it. She didn't know what it wanted, but she'd begun hearing it in her own voice. Echoes of herself, repeating phrases she'd never said, thoughts she didn't think. "I think it's wearing me," she whispered. And I believed her, because that's what it does. It learns you. It mimics you. Then it becomes you. Jenna wasn't alone. There was an old woman 2 floors down, Mrs. Callahan. She left post-it notes on her door that read, "Do not knock," and "Hearing voices, go away." I knocked anyway. She didn't answer. But the next morning, her door was open. Inside, the apartment was empty. Not a furniture of everything. It looked like a stage set that had been peeled away. Wallpaper torn. Carpet stripped to cement. Even the pipes had been yanked from the walls. But one thing was left. On the wall of her living room, drawn in what looked like burnt fingernails, was a name. Jenna. I found Jenna in her apartment, curled up under a blanket, humming to herself. She looked at me with wide, wild eyes. "I think it's under my skin," she said. "I can feel it moving when I sleep, like a second heartbeat." Then she whispered something that shattered me. "I heard your name last night." It whispered it. And I think I said it back. It's spreading again. The whisper doesn't need a name anymore. It has a network now. It lives in our voices, our walls, our thoughts. I tried leaving the building. Every road I take leads me back. Every alley loops. Even my GPS shows the same address, over and over. It knows what I'm trying to do. It feeds on it. Last night, Jenna went silent. I banged her door. No answer. When I finally broke in, her apartment was empty. No furniture. No windows. Just a single sentence scratched into the wall. "Do you hear it too?" I do. I always have. And if you've read this far, maybe you do now too. This is the last time I will write. Not because I've found peace. Not because the whisper has gone silent. But because I've finally understood what it wants. What it is. And I know now there is no running. No hiding. There is only listening. After Jenna disappeared, everything in the building changed. Not in the ways you'd expect. Not suddenly. Not explosively. But subtly. That's the word that matters. Because what this thing does, it's not dramatic. It's patient. A slow infestation. It lets you believe you're still in control. Until one day, you wake up and realize you haven't been you for a very long time. I started hearing it speak in my own voice. Not just as a thought, but aloud. I'd wake in the night to hear myself muttering in the dark corner of the room, lips unmoving, breath held. It used to say my name. Then it used other people's names. Then it said Jenna's voice, Sadie's voice. And finally, it stopped using voices altogether. It just spoke in a way that vibrated behind my eyes. Not sound, not thought, something else. Something beneath understanding. Like a sound you feel in your bones. The power started flickering. Lights dimmed even in the daytime. Shadows stayed in corners too long after the sun moved. I began seeing people in the stairwells, faces I didn't recognize. All of them whispering to themselves. Or maybe to it. Maybe to me. I recorded myself sleeping, desperate to understand what was happening during the hours I couldn't remember. For the first few nights, there was nothing. Then, on the fifth night, I heard it, a low hum. Then my voice, saying the words, "The door is open now." And then, hours of silence, except for the sound of something breathing. Not human, not animal, wet, hungry, uneven. The next morning, I found my bedroom door had been unlatched from the inside. I live alone. I lock that door every night. I tried checking out of the building, just walking away. I packed a bag. No more notebooks, no more recordings. Just clothes and the cash I had left. I walked out the front door at 10:42 a.m. By 10:58 a.m., I was back at the front door. No matter which direction I turned, every street, alley, even the shoreline curved back on itself. It was like the building, or maybe the thing inside it, had folded the town into a loop. Or worse, that the town was never real to begin with. That it was just another layer of its voice. It wanted me to stay. And I did. Because eventually you stop resisting. You stop fighting the feeling of your thoughts not being your own. You just listen, and you start to understand it. Jenna came back. Not as herself. She knocked on my door just after midnight, even though I hadn't heard anyone in the hallway for days. I opened the door. She looked the same, but her smile was wrong. Like her mouth didn't know what shape to make. "Daniel," she said. I told her that wasn't my name anymore. She laughed, but it wasn't her laugh. It was mine. She stayed for hours, sat across from me at the kitchen table, asking questions she already knew the answers to. "You remember Eleanor's house, don't you? Do you still see the girl in the closet? Did you know your mother hears it too now?" I didn't ask how she knew. I didn't ask how long it had been inside her, because I already knew. She was gone, worn like skin, and I would be next. The days bled together. I stopped eating. The walls grew mold in shapes that looked like writing. A man moved into Jenna's old apartment. He lasted 3 days. The 4th day, I heard him screaming. The 5th, his door was open and the apartment was gone. Not just furniture, everything. The walls were dust. The floor was missing. Just a void where a home used to be. And in the middle of it, a mirror standing upright, facing outward. I saw myself in it. But I wasn't alone. There was something behind me. Its hand on my shoulder. And it was smiling. I tried destroying the tape recordings. They wouldn't burn. Even the audio cassettes just sat in the fire, warping, melting, but never turning to ash. One night, I smashed the recorder. The next morning, it was on my table again, undamaged, quietly humming. I pressed play. The voice said, "I'm inside now. You let me in when you listened. You gave me your name." Then came the whisper from the walls. "It's time to go home." So I returned. To Eleanor's house. The place where it began. I don't remember driving there. Or walking up the driveway. But I found myself standing before the front door, hand raised to knock. The door opened before I touched it. And inside, nothing had changed. Same faded wallpaper. Same cracked glass. Same closet. But now the rope was back, and it was swinging, slowly. Even though there was no wind, I stepped inside, and I knew what I had to do. They say the body they found was mine. But I'm writing this now, aren't I? So maybe it wasn't. Maybe the thing that left that place wasn't Daniel at all. Maybe it was the voice, wearing my skin. If you're reading this, if you've come this far, you've already heard it, haven't you? That subtle murmur, that whisper in your sleep, that tug when you're alone and someone says your name, even when no one else is there. You listened. You gave it space. You gave it shape. And now it's inside you, too. Don't say your name aloud. Don't answer it. Because the moment you do, it knows where you are, and it will where you next.